Hello, yogis. My name is Amber Holly. I'm in quarantine in my house right now, but normally at Sin City Yoga, I teach on Fridays Power Flow Vinyasa, and then on Mondays I teach regular Vinyasa. And I was asked to do a little mini workshop on inversions, which I'm totally happy to do. I love inversions. So today I'm going to go over legs up the wall, a modified shoulder stand, supported shoulder stand, headstand, and tripod headstand. So why invert? Why is it important to invert? Well, when we invert, which is taking our heart up over our head, that is the simplest term of inversion, we are positively influencing four major systems in our body. So we have the endocrine system, lymph node system, cardiovascular, and nervous system. So those all get benefited when we do inversions, specifically when we do our restorative version. So restorative is anything relaxing. So if we're doing legs up the wall or shoulder stand, the benefits to that is going to help regulate your blood flow. So if you have high blood pressure, it's going to help with that. It's going to, if you have swollen ankles or restless leg syndrome, it's going to help with that because it's rushing the blood flow out of your legs. It's going to help you sleep better. It's going to ease your stress. It's going to help with headaches, and it's going to improve digestion. So that's all the restorative benefits. If you're putting pressure on your head, so your headstands or your tripod headstands, when you put pressure, you're stimulating your blood flow to your head, which means you're going to get a clearer and calmer kind of feeling, and it will also help with migraines and headaches in the long run. So lots of reasons to invert. When you're doing restorative poses, you can hold restorative poses 5 minutes up to 20 minutes. But when you do the more energetic poses, only about a minute is all of this required. So let's get to the yogas. Our first pose is legs up the wall. Exactly what it sounds like. So we're first going to start with bringing our right hip up against the wall. And then once your hip is up against the wall, you can swing your feet up against the wall. And feel free to inch yourself close to the wall if you want to. You can even modify this pose by bringing a blanket or a bolster underneath your hips. But once you're here, just hang out, rest your head, close your eyes. Again, ideally 5 to 20 minutes a day to get the full benefits out of the pose. Coming out, bring the feet against the wall, and log rolling off to your side. Next is modified shoulder stand. For this, I'm going to use a block, but you can use a rolled up pillow, bolster if you have it. Swing your feet up overhead to lift your hips off the floor and immediately bring the block or prop underneath your tailbone. Again, you can hang out up to 5 to 20 minutes, just like we did with legs up the wall. And to come out, pike your feet up enough to lift that block or prop out from away from you, log roll off to the side, just like we did with legs up the wall. And there you have it. For this shoulder stand, I'm using a blanket as a prop underneath my shoulders to help support my neck. You don't have to use a blanket at all, but if you're going to use this prop, it's important to center yourself on the blanket and not turn your head. Lie on your back. You want to bring your feet up overhead or just bring your knees in towards your chest to lift your feet straight up. And do not turn your head around, just look straight up and breathe normally. You want to make sure your hands are supporting your lower back and your elbows are working in towards one another in order to support the lift of the upper back. And once you're up, feel free to play. I'm doing some splits and wide-legged splits, diamond pose. And if you're going to take on plow pose, piking your feet up over your head, make sure your feet can touch the earth. And if you want to take it a little bit further, bring deaf man's pose, dropping your knees by your ears. Coming out of the pose, piking your feet back up overhead, releasing your hands to the floor, lowering down vertebra by vertebra, but keeping your head glued to the mat. So carefully lowering down. For a headstand, here's your finger setup. Interlace your fingers, see the pinky that's kind of out. Curl it under your other pinky, and now you have one pinky. It helps with your balance. It's not a have to, but it helps. For headstand, first we want to make sure our elbows are directly underneath the shoulders, and this is how I do it. I measure my biceps. Then I bring my elbows down to the floor, interlace my fingers, take that pinky out of underneath so you have one pinky. Bringing the top of my head down to the earth so I can feel the back of my head with my hands. Then I can lift my hips like in down dog and walk it in nice and close. You want to try to get your hips up over your shoulders so you're creating a one line hip, shoulder, head. And you can work on that a few times, and that is your beginner state. Then we work on intermediate. Same setup. Measure your biceps, elbows down, interlace your fingers, remove your pinky, top of the head goes down, and walk things in tight. Then just pike your knees into your chest and start there. This is working on your core strength. It's also working on your vertical line. And come out same way you came in and take a child's pose. Child's pose will help regulate the body, help regulate the blood flow, and bring your breath back to normal. And then for advancement, same setup as everything else, except this time we're going to work on lifting our feet. So it's totally appropriate to work with the wall just in case you feel wobbly. Walking in everything tight, piking, lifting, just bringing the knees up first. And once the knees are up over the hips, then you can straighten the legs and really press into the earth with the forearms as you lift your toes up towards the ceiling. And when you're ready to come down, control using your core. For tripod, same rules apply. We're going to bring the top of our head to the earth, and we're going to use our hands instead of our elbows. So you want to make sure that your arms are shoulder width distance apart. Bring the top of your head down, hands down, and then squeeze your elbows in towards another. For beginners, just work on lifting your hips up over your head and work with the sensation of the top of the head and the hands, and just distributing the weight evenly between the head and the hands. For advancement, we're going to go a little bit further. Bringing our head down in the mat, hands down in the mat, squeeze your elbows in tight, make a little box, and then bring your knees to your triceps. And just start there and keep working your hips up over your head. Again, distributing your weight between your head and your hands. And for advancement, we're finally going to lift our feet up over our head. Our setup is going to be the same. Hands down, head down, squeezing the elbows in towards one another, making that box or that shelf for our knees. And then we can raise the feet straight up overhead and holding for about a minute if you can. Make sure you take child's pose. Anytime you put pressure on your head, it just helps get the blood flow back to normal and the heart rate back to normal. This is just a different way of getting into tripod from a wide-legged forward fold. Walking your hands back, squeezing your elbows in towards one another, bringing your head to the earth. So a note on tripod headstands. You will be putting more pressure on your neck in that particular kind of headstand. So practice that with a lot of awareness. And with any inversion, especially the harder ones, you're trying to get the vertical line. So to establish a vertical line, you have to shift your hips over your shoulders to make the pose light and easy. So I like to visualize separating my body in halves, where I'm pressing down with my upper body. So if I'm pressing into my hands for a handstand, or pressing into my forearms for forearm stand, I'm pressing straight down, and then anything above the waist is going straight up. So that helps you determine a vertical line. It's really just practicing with awareness no matter what you're doing. Even if you're falling, you can practice falling with awareness, which is letting your body relax as you fall instead of stiffening. When you stiffen, when you fall, you're going to put your body in shock, so to speak. So you stiffen up, and that's when you get hurt. practicing with a wall is always helpful. Our wall is considered a tool. Just a yoga block is a tool, strap is a tool. So use that wall as a tool while you are teaching yourself to invert and creating a vertical line. And just remember that we practice yoga to decrease suffering, right? To develop and be present, all those skills and our wisdom. So remember your fundamentals and remember to practice with mindfulness and wisdom and compassion for yourself. So please just remember that it takes a lot of work to get to the headstands and the handstands and the forearm stands, even though I didn't cover those two, the last two. But just make sure that you are doing everything slowly with purpose. And I hope to see you all in person at the studio hopefully soon.